This is the After Party, live with Kim McAllister. Pick a couch, grab a drink, and settle into the conversation.
After Party Live is live on a Travel Tuesday. We're going to the beach this time around. We're going to a tropical island. So I think it's good. You know, it's kind of a pre-summer virtual trip for us, and I think it's going to be fun. We're going to have a good time. I see everybody chit-chatting in the chat. Thank you for your patience. Oh, we're talking about the Minion Museum yesterday. It keeps launching. Well, it was a good story, so I guess we'll put that out there. I don't know. Greetings to Tammy as well, and hello to SJ Lola and Mo Direct. Do want to thank some folks that have contributed to the After Party Live over the last couple of days, and I was remiss in not thanking Wes yesterday for popping in with $5. Thank you to Janet W for the monthly contribution, and Donald as well. Wes from yesterday, Kathleen G, Jennifer L, Robin F, Lee S, Heather K, Susan D, Ricky, Vivian, William, James S, Suanne S, Nancy V, Joyce M, Vicky S, and then Wes again. These are all the folks that over the last week or so have contributed to the After Party Live. You know, you think it's $5. What does it do? It all really adds up to help this show out. So some people contribute $5 a month, some people 50, some people more. Just all thank you everyone who does that and helps keep this show going, the Nikki Maduro show and the Mark Thompson show. Just we couldn't thank you anymore, honestly. Very much appreciated. Let's jump into some of these stories we have lined up today. The first one is about this guy. I know the picture's kind of gross. What is he doing? How do you do this to your face? Oh my God, I don't know, but it freaks me out. This guy has set a world record for eye popping. He's from Uruguay. He lives in Italy though, although originally from Uruguay. And he is able to, I don't know, by using his eye muscles or what, he's able to pop his eyes right out of their sockets. His name is Williams Martin Sanchez Lopez. He is from Montevideo, Uruguay, and he currently lives in Milan, Italy. He said he started doing this when he was about 8 or 9 years old, that he is able to relax the muscles around his eyes, and that causes his eyeballs to pop out like a cartoon character. He said, I could basically move the upper and lower parts of the muscles around my eyes, and over time, I perfected the skill until at last I was able to move the eye completely out of the eye socket. His doctors looked at him doing this and they performed official measurements. They found his eyes could pop out 0.74 inches out of their sockets, and that gets him the Guinness World Record for the farthest eyeball pop for a male. He said the funniest thing is when maybe a person doesn't realize what they're about to see, when I come close to them and I pop out my entire eyeball this way, people definitely don't just sit there and watch. They jump 2 meters high. He said this talent that he has, if you want to call it that, has made him a star on social media. People ask him to do it while he says their names. He said, I'm a person that likes to kid around and laugh. So the fact that he said, I can pop my eyes out like that, let's say it's a very different point of view. I wonder if you do this enough to your eyes, if you somehow damage them. It doesn't seem right or healthy. And he looks like a completely different person when his eyes are relaxed versus when they're popped out of his head. It's nuts. Nuts. I don't know why that freaks me out. It just really does. From the Guinness record in eyeball popping to how about a nice Sunday drive in a Lambo EV? This is a nice looking car. Yeah. There's a story about cruising Tuscany in the more refined Lamborghini Urus, U-R-U-S, Urus SE plug-in hybrid. They say that It's an electric hybrid that can navigate Italian villages because of its size, but it still gets a lot of attention. So it's being called a friendlier Lamborghini. This is a hybrid electric Urus SE, and it costs $258,000. That's an expensive electric vehicle. It's a twin turbocharged 4-liter V8 engine that is augmented by this electric motor, providing a little bit more oomph while accelerating out of the switchback curves in Italian villages and hillsides. They say this motor can take over while you're rolling through these sleepy villages, letting the Urus whisk by with as little notice as possible when driving a Lamborghini because it's silent when it clicks over to that electric motor. It, they say, is really impressive for an electric vehicle. 800 horsepower, 700 pound per foot of torque, which allows you to go from 0 to 60 in 3.4 seconds. The top speed for this electric plug-in hybrid vehicle, 194 miles per hour. It's an electrification, this vehicle, which completes the product line with the hybrid electric drivetrains in all three of the Lamborghini models, and a plan to offer a battery electric crossover coupe model. That one's going to be called the Lanzador by 2030. This is the shift that Lamborghini is making. So they say that it might be a hybrid, but it has not lost its edginess, not even a little bit. There are some changes to the way this vehicle looks around the grille and the tail lights. It's got a longer hood, which comes down, you can see there. And they said that eliminates a cut line that cluttered the styling with a break between the hood and the grille area. So, yeah. They say it's a softened, less aggressive styling, but still a power delivery and still muscular. I have to use that word, muscular, testosterone, right? So, yeah, there you go. It's a nice looking car, I'll give it that. 250 whatever thousands, not happening over at my house. Look at this picture. It's a modern art. I wouldn't look at this picture and think that's expensive, but apparently that's really, really, really expensive. And somebody ruined it. This painting was damaged by a child at a museum. It got all scratched up. This painting is worth $56 million. $56 million. It's a Rothko. And it was hanging at a museum in the Netherlands. Now the curators at said museum are considering what to do. This child damaged this $56 million painting by Mark Rothko, who's an American artist, while visiting a museum in Rotterdam. This work is called Gray, Orange on Maroon, number 8. Gray, Orange on Maroon, number 8. 56 million. It now has a number of visible scratches in an unvarnished paint layer. And it happened because a child, in an unsupervised moment, touched the lower part of the work. Probably, kids do, probably reached up and ran his little fingernails all over it. His grubby, snotty little fingernails. This painting was done. Hey, I love kids. I say that, but I know what they do. I have these mirrors in my on my closet doors. I know my house is from the 70s. What can I say? The closet doors are mirrors, floor to ceiling. And they don't stay clean because kids walk up and put handprints all over them. This is what happens. This is what kids do. And it's not just a handprint, it's whatever was on their hands, right? Paint, food, like whatever they're carrying around. So this is what happens. You don't leave a kid unsupervised around artwork that's worth millions. I would say any artwork. This painting from 1960 was being displayed at the museum's depot as the main building undergoes renovations. They're expected to be complete in 2030. The artist is known for doing work with floating color fields. The work was produced from 1949 until 1970 when the artist died. Gray, orange on maroon number 8 was acquired in 1970, one of only 2 Rothko paintings in the Netherlands, and it's among the museum's most valuable pieces. 56 mil. I'm sorry, does it I'm sure it's very special to someone, but it just looks like anyone could do that. I'm so uncultured, right? The museum, Boymans, they're keeping the identity of the child and the parents private. They have not yet determined who will be paying for the repair of this painting. In the past, if someone has messed something up, they have billed the visitor who damaged the artwork. Fine art insurance policies typically cover all risks associated with physical loss and damage to the work, including accidental damage caused by children or visitors. They are currently working to restore this painting and determine the best course of action to repair it before they put it back up for display. And they expect that they will have it back out again in the future. Right now, they're researching the next steps for the treatment of this painting. They're calling all these conservation experts to see what can be done. One of the folks that works for a fine art restoration company says modern unvarnished paintings are particularly susceptible to damage. They say it's owing to a combination of their complex modern materials, a lack of traditional coating layer, and intensity of flat color fields, which make even the smallest areas of damage instantly perceptible. In this case, they say scratching the upper paint layers can have a significant impact on the viewing experience of the piece. This is one of those that you can almost hear someone in a movie ask, "What do you see when you look at this painting? How does it make you feel? Do the colors change the more you look at it?" I don't know. I just see squares and blocks of color. That's it. That's all. I'm sure it took a lot of training to get this skill, but $56 million? All right then. Mm, don't leave your kids unsupervised in the museum. I think that's what we can take away from this story. If you heard this story about from that to this, only on the After Party Live, colorectal cancer is affecting people at younger ages. And researchers have come up with this really interesting piece of information. There's a bacterial toxin called colobactin. It's produced by certain strains of E. coli. And when you're exposed to it, researchers say it changes the DNA in your gut in a way that prompts colon cancer. This study published in the journal Nature. Here's what they say. Colobactin leaves a specific pattern of DNA mutation behind that are more than 3 times as common in early onset colon cancers, specifically in adults younger than 40 as compared to those 70 or older. The researchers suspect that colobactin producing bacteria may be silently colonizing the colons in children, setting the stage for cancer in midlife and beyond. They say the mutation patterns are a historical record in the genome, and what they show is that there's been early life exposure to colobactin and that it's a driving force behind the early onset of colorectal cancers that have been steadily, by the way, increasing among people under the age of 50, to the point where they changed the guidelines for screening to 45 instead of 50 because younger people are getting it. The colon cancer rates increased by 2.4% a year among people younger than 50 between 2012 and 2021. That according to the American Cancer Society. And the death rates in people under 55 have been increasing about 1% a year since the mid 2000s. And At the same time as that's happening, colon cancers have been declining among older adults, partially because we have these screening technologies, colonoscopies, etc., right, that catch it earlier. The analysis that these researchers did revealed colobactin is a common toxin among early onset colon cancers. They looked at 981 colon cancer samples collected from patients in 11 countries. The results showed colobactin's damaging effects began early in tumor development and accounted for about 15% of the earliest genetic alterations that directly promote cancer development. Here's the quote from this researcher: "If someone acquires one of these driver mutations by the time they're 10 years old, they could be decades ahead of schedule for developing colorectal cancer, getting it at age 40 instead of age 60. So now comes the work to try to figure out how kids are being exposed to colobactin producing bacteria, how we can stop that. The researchers say it reshapes how we think about cancer, that it might not just be something that happens to us in adulthood, that cancer could potentially be influenced by events in early life, maybe even in the first few years of our life. So, how do we prevent and treat cancer before it's too late? How do we get ahead of it by looking at what children are exposed to that could affect us decades down the road? Interesting when you look at that, because you don't think about, what's happening to young lives, that what kids are being exposed to could have an impact later on. I think it's something important to focus on. I have a couple of stories about Shakespeare. One of them about his wife. There was a common thought among Shakespearean scholars that he and his wife did not have the best relationship. He lived in one city and she lived in another city, and that was it. But they found this letter several years ago in the binding of a book. By the way, did you know that Shakespeare's wife's name was Anne Hathaway? I'm sure you knew, but uh, this letter is from, of course, the 17th century, and it it raises questions about maybe they weren't so unhappy after all. Maybe they did live in the same place. He lived in London. She lived in Stratford upon Avon. But this new analysis of this letter fragment by researchers at the University of Bristol is questioning the thought of their whole unhappy marriage thing. The letter was preserved by accident in the binding of a book. It was addressed to good Mrs. Shakespeare, and it appears to show both the husband and the wife living together in central London at some point in the early 1600s. Before this, there was no evidence ever putting Mrs. Shakespeare in London with Mr. Shakespeare. This letter has been around. We've known about it since the late 70s, but no one could identify the names or places involved, or it didn't give anyone reason to think that the Mr. Shakespeare in the letter was necessarily William Shakespeare. Could have been maybe someone else, but now they say no, it was them. And they say it's a story about Shakespeare's marriage as well as their London contacts. That the letter, it explains this story where Shakespeare is withholding money from an orphaned boy. And someone writes to Mrs. Shakespeare asking her for the money. And she stands by her husband's side in this, saying that it was the writer of the letter's problem and they weren't going to be giving the money. So they said it shows a side of his life, Shakespeare's life, that wasn't known before. Now they have another address, a place where he lived. And it shows Mrs. Shakespeare was involved with her husband's money, financial affairs, and his social networks, that people would write to her as well as him. So they say it's a game changer in the terms of the thinking about their marriage. So that was kind of interesting. And then I found another Shakespeare story. It's an embarrassment of Shakespeare riches. early on, well, right after Shakespeare died, a group of his performers and supporters got together and they published his works in a folio. There are 4 folios, and the first one was the one they did, then there was a second, third, and fourth folio, and they're hard to come by, especially since there were fires that damaged many of these early works. But now there is a set, which is so rare, a set of all 4 that, came up for auction is coming up for auction, I should say. And they think this set of all 4 folios, and again, maybe if you find 1 or 2 is expensive but doable, but all 4, really hard to do. So, this set of 4 they think could sell for as high as $6 million at auction. There were, um it's titled Mr. William Shakespeare's Comedies, Histories, and Tragedies. That's the first folio, which was published 7 years after Shakespeare died in 1623. And then there were a few more editions published in the years that followed. The second folio came out in 1632, a third folio in 1663, and the fourth in 1685. And this is the first time since 1989 that a set of all 4 is going up for auction at the same time. These folios usually bring in pretty impressive amounts of money. The first one was sold, there was a sale of it in 2020 at Christie's, 10 million just for one. It at that time was the priciest piece of literature ever auctioned. There was another one in 2022 that went for $2.5 million. There are some plays written by other authors that are in some of these folios. The first one has 18 plays. Macbeth is in there, As You Like It, The Tempest. Most of them had never been published until the first folio came out. So, by the way, the first is still considered the most valuable. The third is the most rare. About 750 copies of the first folio were printed in 1623, and the thinking is that 235 still exist today. Only 182 copies of the third folio survive because they think most of them probably burned in the Great Fire of London in 1666. That according to the Associated Press. So, Sotheby's writes this: owning a set of all four folios has been a goal for generations. They say the first, third, and fourth folios were purchased around 1800 in this particular collection. And then as it was passed down, the second folio was added to the collection in 2016. All 4 editions contain unique errors. The quality of the text of the folios tended to decline with each print. The second folio includes an ode to Shakespeare by poet John Milton. The third has 7 additional plays, and only one of them is thought to have been written by Shakespeare. Most of the folios in existence are owned by institutions. So the complete sets have become increasingly rare. We'll see how they sell it. Again, they think 6 million. I think probably a lot more. I don't know. Not that I'm an expert or anything. This is also something up for auction. Actually, I think it's already been auctioned off. This is a gold watch that belonged to astronaut Neil Armstrong. It's a commemorative timepiece given to him after he came back from outer space that just went up for auction. It sold for $2.1 million. That's a really expensive watch. Would you ever even wear it at that point? No. Just put it in some kind of case or safety deposit box. This is why I'm not rich. I would never display the expensive stuff. Neil Armstrong, of course, went to the moon, walked on the moon in 1969. He was the first person ever to walk on the moon. Then he came back from the moon and he went to this gala dinner in Houston. And that is where he was presented with this 18 karat gold Omega Speedmaster professional watch. And apparently, it just went up for auction, and someone forked over $2.1 million to get a hold of it. This rare timepiece is called one of the tribute to astronauts watches made to commemorate the Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo programs. Omega gave one of the special edition chronographs to President Richard Nixon, one to Vice President Spiro Agnew, and more than 24 to Armstrong and fellow astronauts with the program. The back of this one is engraved with Armstrong's name, as well as Gemini 8, Armstrong's first space flight, and Apollo 11, his moonwalk mission. And it features the phrase, "To mark man's conquest of space with time, through time, on time." He liked to wear this for special occasions. He said that his son said it symbolizes one of the most remarkable achievements in the history of mankind. And yet they auctioned it off, a substantial portion of the proceeds of that 2.1 million going to charitable causes that Armstrong believed in. Some of the funds going to a scholarship foundation. So, yeah, there's that watch. Pretty cool. Here's a lotto of the day for you. Look at this. Wealth. Who wouldn't buy this lottery ticket, right? This lottery ticket, this one was a long time coming. This man in Michigan has been playing the lottery for more than, yeah, I'll talk to you, more than 40 years. And he bought this scratch off ticket, this wealth scratch off ticket. He's 60 years old. So he's been playing since he was 20. And he bought this at Nager's Liquor and Deli on Van Dyke Avenue in Sterling Heights, Michigan, and he said this win was a long time coming. He said, "I play scratch-off tickets all the time, and I've been playing for more than 40 years, and when I scratched the ticket and saw that I won $6 million, I thought I was gonna faint." He said, "I had to scan it on the lottery app to double check it because I didn't believe what I was seeing." He said, it still feels surreal. His prize money will go toward taking a vacation and boosting his savings. $6 million. I think you could do more than take a vacation, don't you think? Boosting the savings? I mean, come on. This next story, I'm telling you. Um, this lady, she's at a Mexican restaurant with her husband, having a nice dinner out, and she feels something hit her forehead. And then she leans over to take a sip of her margarita, and there's a snake wrapping itself around the straw in her glass. This lady is from Virginia. She was at a restaurant called Patron Mexican Restaurant and Cantina in Virginia, Sandston, Virginia. And she said she just finished eating when she felt this small impact. She said, "I leaned in to take a sip and I noticed something hit me in the forehead. And I looked at my husband like, what was that?" And when I turned around, she said, "I saw the snake in my margarita. It was moving and it started wrapping itself around my straw." There are restaurant workers rushing over trying to get the snake to wrap itself around a stick. But ultimately, another customer came and grabbed the snake with their hands and took it outside. The woman said, "I just kept saying, 'Please don't let it go in my purse.'" She said, "I left shaking. I was traumatized." The restaurant offered to move her to another table, but she said she just wanted to get out of there and leave. She said it was a shock. The owner of the restaurant said the snake likely entered the building through an air conditioning vent, and they really didn't do much for her. She asked them if they would have, pest people out to make sure this didn't happen again. They said no. They didn't feel like it was that big of a thing. She says she's not going out to eat again anytime soon. This was something that really affected her. It turns out this restaurant has had violations in the past for sanitary stuff going on. So I don't know. I think I would freak out if a snake fell from the ceiling, hit me in the head, and then fell into my margarita. Yeah, I could see a freak out there. Absolutely. There is a Russian space probe that's coming back down to Earth. It's coming. It's a dead Soviet space probe from 1972, and astronomers say this thing is going to fall back to Earth. It poses risks similar to that of a meteorite impact. They think it's going to hit speeds of 150 miles an hour before it slams down into Earth. It's called Cosmos 482, and it was one of two space probes launched by the Soviet Union. They had planned for them to go to Venus. One of them did, Venera 8, successfully reached its destination, but there was a malfunctioning Soyuz rocket that malfunctioned, and then I guess Cosmos 482 never made it past Earth's orbit. So it's been circling our planet for more than 50 years. But its demise is now on the horizon. There's a satellite tracker from the Netherlands says, based on calculation models co-designed by a space engineer, Cosmos 482 is due to begin its descent around May 10th, but they say it's difficult to pinpoint where it might happen at the moment because of the sun's ongoing active phase and influence on atmospheric conditions. What they think is that Cosmos 482 means it could hit re-entry as far as north as the United Kingdom and as far south as New Zealand. So that's a pretty wide swath. They say it will achieve a velocity of about 150 miles per hour in the moments before impact. With a mass of just under 1,102 pounds and its 1 meter size, risks are similar to that of a meteorite impact. They say the risks aren't particularly high, but they're not zero either. It's possible that this old Soviet space probe could burn up as it re-enters the atmosphere, but it's not a given because when they designed this probe with the mission of going to Venus, it was designed to survive passage through the atmosphere of Venus. And that means it's possible that it will survive re-entry through the Earth's atmosphere intact, and it will be intact when impact occurs. So there's also, although very unlikely, a chance that the landing parachute on this thing might still deploy during its last moments. They say they probably wouldn't bet on that working. They think that if it comes down and survives re-entry, it'll come down really, really hard. So they're going to keep trying to pinpoint a better date and a better time of re-entry, but it'll be interesting to see where this thing lands. You know? Yikes. All right. Shall we do it? Let's go. Let's go on a little vacation together. It is Travel Tuesday. Let's go to the beach. I want to. Today we will go to St. Croix. It's a beautiful place to visit. Here's a picture of St. Croix. Feels like we're there already, doesn't it? Hey, relaxing, lovely. Look at that beach. I think there's a place for me right there. There are so many fun things to do in St. Croix. It's often called the most underrated summer beach vacation in the United States. It is the least visited and largest U.S. Virgin Island. There are beautiful beaches all around this island with calm turquoise blue waters, some powerful waves as well. There's great snorkeling and scuba diving. The day trips include boat rides at the Buck Island National Wildlife Refuge, which also has amazing scuba diving and snorkeling. and it's almost always sunny. Most days, the average high is 86, low 77 throughout the summer months. So, yeah. And there are lots of places to explore. So let's dig into it because here are some of the best things to do in St. Croix. One of them, as just mentioned, is an excursion to Buck Island Reef National Monument. There's a picture of Buck Island Reef National Monument. It is a 176-acre island surrounded by a stunning coral reef ecosystem. It's a protected sanctuary for endangered sea turtles, a wide variety of fish, beautiful corals. You can relax on Turtle Beach. You can also snorkel and scuba dive to explore the coral reef. Um, they say it's a must do, Buck Island, when you visit St. Croix. There are tour operators that will take you there, but there are limited options per day. Still, it's called worth it. Uh, they say it's like something out of a fairy tale. That they folks that have gone would say, don't go to St. Croix without making a trip to Buck Island. Next on the list is Point Udall. This is watching the sunrise at Point Udall. It's the easternmost point of the United States. And it's got this beautiful sundial that was built in 2000. And it holds the distinction of being the easternmost point in the United States. Aside from its representation in that way, it serves as the site of the first sunlight in the United States every day. The best time to visit, sunrise, of course, and the drive up and includes some amazing views. And after you check out the sunrise here, you can go spend the day at Isaacs Bay Beach or Jack's Beach. And there's a short hike from the trailhead. So look at that. It's beautiful. You can go check out Christian Head. There are historical sites here. This town, Christiansted, is a town that was founded in 1733. It was at one time the capital of the Danish West Indies, and there are so many historical sites to explore here, including Fort Christiansvern, established in 1738 to protect the island, the Old Danish Customs House, a bright yellow building with a staircase. It was originally a slave and sugar trading house, but now it's a library, congressional offices, and park management offices. And they say it's really interesting to see how the building has transformed over time. Also, there's a building called the Scale House, which was used at one time for weighing imports and exports. And now it houses a scale and offers insights to the island's past. So, and they say you can take advantage of strolling down the historic streets where Alexander Hamilton once walked as well. I have more pictures of this. Here's a look at that beach. That's so beautiful. This is another spot to check out. It's called the Sandy Point National Wildlife Refuge. It is at the southwest point of St. Croix, and it is a conservation hub for endangered leatherback and hawksbill turtles. It's a refuge that will allow you guided sea turtle observations, bird watching, picnic spots, and various beaches. Part of it is closed for the summer for sea turtle nesting, and it's accessible only on weekends during the rest of the year. But they say it's a place to go to blend conservation and education, and it's just beautiful and unmissable. So that's the Sandy Point National Wildlife Refuge. If you're lucky, maybe you'll spot a turtle or two. How about going on a sunset sail? I know, you could do this on any island, but you know what? Look at that. That's beautiful. I mean, there are other options, spending the day beach hopping, going hiking, snorkeling. right? But it was a sunset sail. This picture really caught my eye. The view is breathtaking, a great way to relax after a long day of exploring. The boat takes you through the harbor out into the open ocean where you can take in the beauty of the islands. They say there's nothing quite like watching the sunset over the Caribbean Sea. Here is the Frederiksted Pier. Looks like a beautiful place to spend the day. They say you can dive, snorkel, and jump off the side, watch the sunset, or go for a walk and watch this bustling area. There's some history that goes along with this pier. It is a staple on the west side of the island. A lot to do here. Speaking of Frederiksted, we have another area here at Fort Frederick, which was built in the 1750s to defend the island from pirates and other invaders. Look at that bright red building. It played a significant role in the history of St. Croix. So it's fun to go there, learn about the history. You get inside, it costs $5 to get in. And they say it's very heavy and deeply educational and a very important part of any trip to the island of St. Croix. And then after you do that, in the evening, get a kayak and go check this out. It's a bioluminescent bay kayak tour. You paddle into the darkness of the Salt River Bay in St. Croix, and you can see these microorganisms that glow in the dark waters. There are red mangrove trees that surround Salt River Bay, and it makes it the perfect environment for this to occur, the bioluminescence. One of the things they say you should do before booking this tour is research the moon phases, because if there's no moonlight, you'll be able to see the glowing microorganisms in a much more clear way. So you hop into a clear kayak for one of these unforgettable experiences. It's one of only a few places in the world where this is possible. So I think that's definitely on our list. You know what else is on our list? We're going to the rum distillery. Absolutely. This is called the Cruzan Rum Distillery, Cruzan, Cruzan. From the local sugarcane to aged barreling for a decade, they teach you all about the process of how this distillery has been making some of the most popular rum in St. Croix. This Cruzan rum is sold across the country. And it's kind of fun, they say, to see it being made. The tours haven't been up and running for a while, but it looks like maybe they're making a comeback. But you can stop by, bring a bottle of flavored rum back home. So it's the Cruzan Rum Distillery. That sounds pretty fun. And if you're interested in the history, you can go visit the sugar mill ruins in this area as well. The sugar mills were pretty important when the Danish were ruling the US Virgin Islands. St. Croix, apparently one of the leading sugar producers in the entire Caribbean, so well known on the island, there's even a website that marks all of the known mills around St. Croix. You can go see this. This is, again, one of the sugar mills in ruins on the island. And so there we have it. A little history of St. Croix. We got to go see the turtles and experience the sunrise at the easternmost point, right, and of the United States. Learn about a little history. See more turtles, the hawk-billed turtles. Go cruising at sunset, taking in the islands from the ocean view. Got to go to the Frederiksted Pier and the Fort Frederick area, learn about the history, and then see the bioluminescence, and then have a little rum, and then see the sugar mill ruins. I think we had a great trip. I'm ready to get on the plane and go. Although we don't need to because we just went together, right? That's right. I have one last story to present to you today, and it is a story of proof. We knew, because we've all seen Gladiator, right? That gladiators fought lions, but now there's evidence. This is an old bone. It's a pelvic bone of a gladiator. And you can see evidence here that, yeah, the gladiators really did fight lions, because this person appears to have been chomped on by a lion. The researchers compared the markings found on an ancient skeleton in England to bones that had been chewed on by cheetahs, lions, tigers, and leopards in present day zoos. And what they found is there's some physical evidence here of human animal gladiatorial combat in Europe. There are bite marks on the skeleton of a young muscular man that were likely made by a lion. The study, published in the journal PLOS ONE. The scientists revisited a set of human remains that were unearthed in 2004 at a site called Driffield Terrace in near York in northern England. And that's where archaeologists found more than 80 skeletons that they think were from between the first or early second century to the late fourth century. And nearly all of the bodies had belonged to men between the ages of 18 and 45 that had come from various parts of the Roman Empire. And all the remains showed signs of severe injuries, and many of these men had been decapitated. The area, York, was known as Eboracum to the Romans, and it was an important military outpost. In this city of northern Britain, they called it Britannia between 71 CE and 400 CE. But based on the evidence that they pulled out, they say this is a cemetery for gladiators, and it was a really rare find. So they looked at this one skeleton that had some pretty unusual marks on the pelvis, as you can see here, and used some modern forensic techniques to study these remains. They did some 3D scans of the indentations, and they went to zoos in England and they got bones that had been chewed on by animals, and they made 3D scans of those too. And they compared the marks on the Roman gladiator skeleton to the ones that they got on bones from the zoo, and they say that confirmed their hunch. This gladiator was bitten by a big cat, probably a lion. So they think this gladiator was fighting in some sort of spectacle and was incapacitated, and that the lion bit him and dragged him away by his hip. The analysis suggests the bite marks happened around the time of death, indicating this wasn't an animal scavenging after a person died, but was actually associated with the person's death. The man's head was cut off either to put him out of his misery or the sake of confirming to customary practice, conforming rather. They say after he died, he was placed in a grave with 2 other people, and then the burial site was covered with horse bones. They say beyond revealing what happened to this particular unlucky gladiator, it also reinforces the idea that Britain's Roman amphitheaters were settings for demonstrations of power. That it makes an important contribution to desanitizing the Roman past in the UK. Proof. The movies weren't wrong. Gladiators were eaten by lions. Yikes. Well, not the happiest way to end the after party live, but that's all right. End it we do. Tomorrow we will visit with Michael Schur on the Mark Thompson Show. John Rothman will be on the show. Belinda Weymouth will be on the show with It's the Planet Stupid. And then we'll look at some waterfalls here on the After Party Live. And I hope that you will join. Thank you again for contributing to the After Party Live. Look at this. Pardon me. With $20 and a thank you. Thank you. Much appreciated. Really, thank you very much for contributing to the After Party Live. I'm very grateful. I will see you guys tomorrow. Until we meet again, please go out and make it the best day you can. And I'll see you tomorrow right back here on the YouTube.
The After Party Live would like to thank the following contributors and viewers like you.